Lincoln Small, welcome to Brooklands.
Thank you, Mark.
And thank you so much for coming today with your book, Abarth, Radbourne Racing and Me. Tell me more.
When I started Radbourne Racing in 1965, and we obtained the Abarth concession for the UK the same year, and that began the most extraordinary life which I've enjoyed. I've been involved with motor racing at many levels, sports cars, single seasons as well. But the loveliest, sweetest gem of all is this little Fiat Abarth, which is a Radbourne Abarth 1300, which is a car that we've actually built. There's a camera will tell you that we built this car back in 1967. It was one of a batch of 9. It should have been a batch of 30, but unfortunately we almost went bust building them, and so we built 9. This one I've kept ever since. I take no credit for the shape, which is stunningly beautiful, but I take all credit for the mechanicals because they were ours. But it was an officially licensed Radbourne Abarth product.
So Lincoln, Radbourne started in the mid-60s, in 65?
Yes, 65.
And what made you start it? What was your relationship with Abarth?
I was just a kid that had a white Fiat 600 with Abarth stickers on it.
Lovely. Okay, that's great. And you said, well, I can see there's a market here for more than just stickers.
At the time, the #1 fashion car was the Mini Cooper. And, you know, to have anything that wasn't a Mini Cooper had to be brilliant because it would just be rejected by the public. But in Italy at the time, the equivalent of the Mini Cooper was the Fiat Abarth, which is the baby little Fiat 500 and 600s, that had been tuned to give greater power, engine swaps, etc., etc. And these cars were being raced on the continent with great success. And in fact, they were the only cars that could beat the Mini Coopers in their class. So we felt this was an opportunity to introduce Fiat Abarth cars into England. And that's exactly what we did. We started racing in 65 again. And for the next few years, we raced internationally, nationally, and I'm happy to say we were very successful.
So what was the business then? It wasn't just you racing.
No.
The racing was to promote the brand.
That's right. The business was we would take Fiats, standard Fiat cars, and modify them, tune them, make them faster, quicker, sexier.
Yeah.
And that was what the business was. On top of that was a Fiat dealership as well, which sold Fiats.
Okay.
And Fiat at the time was the most popular foreign car in England.
Okay. And we're still in the mid-late 60s.
Yes. And it was the most popular.
How easy was it for you as Radbourne to get a dealership with Fiat?
Well, it was not difficult because there were no restrictions put on you then.
Okay.
All you had to do was sell a few cars every year.
Okay.
And we actually started the business behind a pub in Isleworth.
Okay. Brilliant. Excellent. Okay. And so when did you first get your forecourts?
66, we moved to Kensington. December 66. There was a showroom in Clarendon Road, Holland Park. And we took over the showroom from some chap whose name I have forgotten. Okay. But anyway, we took that over. And then it really went from then onwards, actually.
So was it mostly 500s, 600s and 850s?
Well, it was in terms of volume, but in fact, not necessarily in terms of prestige, because Fiat large cars in those days were also very popular.
Yeah.
2300s, 2100s, 2300 S coupes, 1500s, 1600s. There is all so many different types of Fiat that you could always fill a customer's needs with a Fiat.
So you were selling standard Fiats, and then supplementary would be the Radbourne tuning.
That's right. But what really changed it all was we decided that we would try and build the Fiat Abarth complete in England, and this meant importing a Fiat 500 or a 600 and then importing the spare parts. The trouble is there was very high purchase tax on importing of cars completely, and it wasn't worth our while doing it. So we tried to find a way of getting around the regulations, and we did. And we actually copied Colin Chapman with Lotus, who was selling his cars as kit cars, so there was no purchase tax on them. And we did exactly the same. We took a standard Fiat, which we would buy from Fiat UK, and we would buy the components from Abarth and import them, the carburetors, the exhaust pipes, etc. And we would then fit them to the Fiat 500s and 600s without purchase tax. It was quite legal. And we found ourselves now competitive. And we would sell the Fiat Abarth for £1 a litre.
Really?
So we had a Fiat 500, we sell it for £500.
Good gracious me.
600, we sold it for £600.
So they are a bit of a niche product, being right-hand drive Abarths.
Yes, yes.
How interesting. And how was your market?
Very good.
So those that were buying the Coopers and the Cooper S's had a look at the Abarth and smiled.
That's right, and lots of them bought them.
Yeah. So what was the Abarth offering that the Cooper S couldn't offer?
Something completely different.
Okay. Style over substance in some respects?
Yes.
How lovely. So how long did this run for?
It ran through to the 90s. It was in the 90s, or not the 90s really, it was the 80s, that Fiat, they changed their direction, and it really, they were not interested in motor racing.
Okay.
And one day, there was a knock on the door, and it was Mr. Renault. And Mr. Renault said, listen, we at Renault are spending fortunes on motor racing, but our dealers in England are not interested in motor racing. Will you take a Renault agency? And if you could take a Renault agency, you can have our motor racing department. Wow. I said, thank you very much, we'll have that.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
So having got Renault, did you continue with Abarth, or was Abarth
No,
parked?
we stopped.
Okay.
No, we stopped. Abarth by this time had been taken over by Fiat completely. Yeah. They'd stopped making many types of cars that they were famous for. And they just languished, really. And it wasn't until I suppose probably about 10 years ago, I'm not really sure, when the new Abarths, the ones that you see here today, the new ones, when they came onto the scene, if you like, and resurrected the Abarth name.
The MX-5 redesigned Abarths.
Well, no, the Fiat 500.
Okay. All right, I'm with you. Yes. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Okay. Fine.
The MX-5 did also, but it wasn't a particularly successful operation for Fiat.
So we're now with Renault, and which models were you breathing them on?
Renault 5, Renault 9, Renault 11, but we also had Renault Alpine. And Renault Alpine was a French copy of Abarth.
Yeah.
In fact, they look like an Abarth.
By now we didn't have
A110 looks just like this, but in blue.
Now we don't have that tax situation to worry about, so you could bring in the Renault's specials,
and which we did.
Yeah,
and we imported.
And then you breathed on them in the Radbourne Magic.
That's right.
and sold them as a Radbourne.
Well, we did. They were sold as Radbourne Renaults, in fact.
Yeah, okay.
I had people come to me today, even though it's the Italian car day here. I've actually had a couple of people come up and say, we had five turbos from you in period. It was just wonderful. And they were, not because of us, they were just really wonderful little cars.
Yeah, they were. So what did Radbourne do to a turbo to make it different? Was it mostly...
a lot of it, well, first of all, there was the cosmetic side of it.
Yeah.
But we tuned the engine more so that the engine would produce more power. Turbocharging was wasn't very difficult to increase the power of a turbocharged engine. Much easier than on an atmospheric engine. And so that's exactly what happened.
Okay, fine. So we're now into the 80s and working our way through the 80s. Radbourne still has forecourts.
No.
Now,
oh, in the 80s, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And they're badged up as Renault.
Yeah. We had a Renault dealership.
You still had the 3?
Yes. Yes.
And as a sideline, you're doing the tuning and the rebadging.
What I was going to say, my co-directors and I, we split back up in 1981, I think it was, because one of them wanted us to go Renault and the other wanted to stay Fiat. So the Renault Ansted boy, Jeff, came with me, and John, his brother, took over the running of the Kensington one. So, but very amicable. It was just that John really was wed to Fiat, and I wouldn't say I wasn't wed to Fiat, but I would say that the marriage was having a bit of a bumpy ride.
Okay, but you were looking at the business model as well at the same time.
And
so we're now going through the 80s and into the 90s?
Yes.
And still with Renault?
Yes, all the way through to 99.
And what happened then?
We sold the business.
Oh, okay. Fine. Simple as that.
Yeah, yes, it was.
And it was a happy conclusion?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We'd had a marvellous time with Renault. The guys in Wimbledon, Radbourne Racing, who took over the Renault business, if you like, and carried on being the technical suppliers to Renault for all their junior racing series.
Okay.
So the Formula cars, Formula Renaults, and the saloons, the Renault Clios, as it were, they carried on with the same guys and still from the same premises, which was the workshop premises.
So you said goodbye to retail, basically?
Yes.
And went into specialist
That's
tuning
right. Yes.
and Formula work?
Exactly. Yes.
So 35 years?
Yes.
Wow, that's a good... I mean, bearing in mind the nicheness of what you were doing, to last for 35 years is very clever.
Well,
no, you did well.
Well, we lasted.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine, that's great. So what happened as you went into the 2000s? You diversified?
I left the motor trade as such. I left the motor business as such. And I actually went into property.
Okay.
The car business, to be fair, at that time was not the best place to be.
Okay.
It was it was very hard work, and people were not interested in the cars. It was soul destroying. We'd have people come to the showroom and not buy a Renault 5, if you like, because we couldn't get them a black one, and they wanted a black one, but we could get them a blue one. Oh no.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm afraid I lost, shall we say, I lost the passion, except that I didn't lose the passion for the motor racing as such.
Okay.
So I carried on motor racing.
Well, say goodbye.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and good luck with the book.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark.